I think what we're finding with this Mandela effect is that it has so much to do with consciousness. It's all these changes we're seeing that are helping us to wake up to the importance of our consciousness. And I think, in quantum physics, when they talk about the act of observation, they're really talking about consciousness because it's our awareness that serves as the measuring tool of reality and ultimately plays a role in constructing our experience of reality itself. What if these changes or even reality itself aren't actually happening in something outside of our perception, in some kind of external place we were taught is called Earth? This would explain why people discover specific change at different times and how specific flip-flops can happen at different times for different people, and why some people don't experience a flip-flop at all while others do. I don't think that certain people are from one timeline and like other people are from different timelines. Instead of being on different timelines, I think different people are at different levels of consciousness. Even within ourselves, we can move between different levels of consciousness realities that can kind of shift back and forth. That's why even within the community, we don't all experience every single one of the Mandela effect changes, even though, as a collective, we can all say for sure that we're experiencing the Mandela effect and that we're affected. Now, for the people who won't acknowledge that the Mandela effect is real, I think that their level of consciousness or awareness just has not reached the point to where they can pick up on different changes, or acknowledge different changes. And for some, it may never reach that point. Their individual consciousness just isn't strong enough to resist the downloads. I think the state of someone's mind has a lot to do with that, because the mind, and when I say mind, I'm just talking about their thought process. The mind is like a filter, and depending on how programmed someone's mind is, they may or may not be able to be aware of certain things. And keep in mind, when I say this, I'm talking about things on a relative level. Now, on a more absolute level, I think that we are all holographic consciousness fractals of God. And, some of us fractals seem to be more connected to source than others. But the very act of being able to observe anything, whether we can see the changes with the Mandela effect or not, the very fact that we're able to observe anything is only possible because of God, because God is the source of consciousness. Now, some people have totally turned their back on God, but God allows for them to do that. Since we've been given free will by God, we as individualized consciousness fractals of God, we're free to choose how quote unquote awake we want to be. And I think part of being able to wake up is accepting that a lot of the things we assumed were objective facts are actually just concepts or ideas that we've been conditioned to believe since we were kids. They're not actually based on our own personal experience. One of the biggest ideas that we were brainwashed into believing was that it's possible to experience an objective reality. By definition, your experience of reality is subjective because it's your own experience that is happening within yourself, not within a world. You don't exist in a world. The world exists within you. You are not as insignificant as you were told that you were. You're just not. And it's impossible to experience or observe anything outside of consciousness. The very act of your observation is what collapses the probability wave into a particle. Even your most mainstream minded person will admit that everything is composed of particles, and particles don't exist until observation collapses them into a particle. The ground that you walk on is a product of your consciousness. Stop and really think about that. It's amazing. Existence is pretty amazing. Now, some people may say, well, even if the world doesn't exist as particles outside of yourself, the wave that started out as the particle before it was collapsed existed somewhere out there, outside yourself. Now, I get that argument, I do, but I don't think the probability wave is something that exists independent of us, because I think the probability wave is a part of God, and since we are literally holographic consciousness fractals of God, I don't think it's too out there or too far-fetched to say that the probability wave is not something that exists outside of consciousness, because it's a part of universal consciousness or source. So, with that being said, we really have to rethink the idea that there is some kind of external world that exists independent of observation or consciousness. Listen to this clip of two people debating whether there's actually a world out there.
I know, of course, what you're referring to, that the deeply held belief that we are all brought up with, that there is something outside awareness. But I'm now asking you to explore that belief, because your question is based on that belief. I'm asking you, can you find something outside consciousness? Look around you now. Try to point to something in your experience that is taking place outside consciousness. You see, we presume there is an outside world made out of stuff called matter. And we have been rehearsing that belief for so many years that we just presume it is absolutely true. There is a world out there made out of dead stuff called matter. We just believe that. And then we start asking questions about that world. Is it conscious? What is it made of? We ask all sorts of questions about it. But the belief in such a world made out of dead stuff called matter, existing independently of awareness, is simply a belief. When we try to look for the facts that support that belief, we can't find them. From your own experience, not because of what I said, but from your own experience, that all you know of Rupert is the experience of seeing and hearing. Indeed, all you know of this room is the experience of seeing and touching. All you know of the so-called outside world is the experience of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. That's all you know of the outside world, is seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Where do they take place? Outside yourself? Does seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, or smelling ever take place at a distance from yourself? 2 meters or 20 meters or 2 miles? No. All experience is totally intimate, closer than close. You've never experienced anything at a distance from yourself. That is, from your self-consciousness. If we believe we are a body, moving around in time and space, then, of course, we seem to experience things at a distance from ourselves. But if we know that we are awareness, then nothing is at a distance from, or separate from, or indeed made out of anything other than ourself.
Currently, I'm listening to you. I have the perception of this room. I'm aware about my thoughts, but I can't say that you are consciousness. I don't have this perception.
Okay. But you say, let's just rewind a little bit. You said, currently I'm having a perception of this room.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? So you presume that there is something called a room,
Yeah.
and that you are having a perception of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what is your experience of the room apart from your perception? Let's remove your perception. What remains of the room?
Nothing much.
Nothing
I
much.
have no perception if I remove perception.
Exactly. When your perception goes, the so-called room goes. So in fact, it's not true to say, I have a perception of the room. You just have a perception. The of the room, you never find. What I'm trying to show you, first of all, as a first step towards answering your question, is that your current perception is not a perception of a room. It's just a perception. Because you've never experienced the room independent of your perception. So it's just a perception. Now, let's call it, it's just the experience of seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Your only knowledge of this so-called room out there is the experience of seeing. So what is the experience of seeing made of? What is its substance? It has a substance, yes? It's made of something. What would that something be?
Well, the shapes, the colors.
No, because all you know of shape and color is the experience of seeing. What is that experience made of? If you were to touch the stuff that seeing is made of, what would you touch?
I think my mind is telling me that the right answer is awareness.
But that's good. It's good that you don't.
But I don't know what's made of, actually.
But that's very good. That's the real answer. And it was very good. That silence, that long silence when you tried to find the stuff that seeing was made of. You're quite right not to answer it with the correct answer that all of us knows. But your silence was your real answer. Because when you tried to find something solid that the experience of seeing was made of, you couldn't find anything. Your mind just went silent. And then eventually, when you tried to formulate that, you said, I don't know. I can't find it. But nevertheless, you know the experience of seeing. So that this empty substance that seeing is made of is made at least of knowing, because you know the experience. All you know of so-called Rupert is seeing and hearing. Yeah? All you know of Rupert is seeing and hearing. How far away from yourself does the experience of seeing and hearing take place? 10 meters?
Not very far. It's inside.
And yes, and what is seeing and hearing made of? If it takes place inside of you, it must be made of whatever is on the inside of you. Yeah? Seeing and hearing is not made out of something outside of you. It is made of what is inside you, which is consciousness.
It's more that myself, it's like capturing something from outside, which is your voice.
But what is this outside that you are referring to? Show me something, tell us about something that you experienced that is outside your consciousness.
Rationally, I understand what you're saying. On the other side, some other part in me is like saying, well, but the mere fact that I'm not perceiving something,
I think it's the other way around. I think experientially you see what I'm saying, but rationally you disagree with it. If you stick to your experience, you and I are talking about the same thing. When I asked you, do you know anything of Rupert apart from hearing and seeing? You just said yes, straight away, so obvious. When I said to you, how far from yourself does hearing and seeing take place, you said, closer than close. So when we talk about our experience, we're together. But
Yeah,
what is being suggested is such an affront to the rational mind that your rational mind just would rather believe its beliefs than believe your experience.
Yeah, because another part of me is saying like, well, the mere fact that right now I'm just having this experience is like putting myself in the center of everything. So if I'm not perceiving something, that doesn't exist. It's like the old philosophical question, if a tree falls into a forest, does it make a sound or not? Well, I think the tree will make a sound, even if I'm hearing or experiencing that sound or not.
You think that, but why? It's true, you do think that, but why? What evidence do you have?
Yeah, but again, the fact that I don't have evidence for something does not mean that that something does not exist.
That's very true. However, the analogy I usually use is, have you ever experienced a pink elephant? No.
No.
Now, the fact that you have never experienced a pink elephant doesn't prove that pink elephants don't exist. You're absolutely right. They could exist. Yeah? However, if you were to ask all 7 billion of us, have you ever experienced a pink elephant? Everyone would say no. You would still be right. That doesn't prove pink elephants don't exist.
So I'm just gonna interrupt for a second. These people are actually Mandela affected and they don't even realize it. Pink elephants are actually real in this reality. Well, now I have to say were actually real because after seeing this video, I looked up images of pink elephants because a while ago when I first heard this Mandela effect, I didn't believe it. So I googled pictures of pink elephants and sure enough, there were countless pics of pink elephants. This recent time, when I looked up pictures of pink elephants, almost all the images on Google were gone. I mean, there's still a few pics of pink elephants, but not half as much as what I remember when I first learned about this Mandela effect. And now the few pics of pink elephants that are left, they're now trying to say that those are just albino elephants. But that wasn't the case when this Mandela effect first happened. So this change seems to have happened and then unhappened. So now it looks like pink elephants were never a Mandela effect. But I distinctly remember all of these pics of pink elephants when I searched Google Images a while ago that were real. They weren't photoshopped or anything like that. At the time I was amazed that there were pink elephants, but now they're gone. A lot of other people can verify that this was a Mandela effect, like Dick Diamonds and many other people. And I'll put a link in the description below with a video of Dick Diamonds talking about the pink elephant Mandela effect. But anyways, I digress. Back to the debate.
However, if you had to make a presumption one way or the other, which would you presume? That they do exist or that they don't? It would be safer to presume that they don't exist, yeah, and always be open to the possibility that one might appear one day, yeah. Now, it's the same thing. Nobody has ever experienced anything outside of themselves. Nobody has ever experienced anything outside of awareness. Our culture is founded upon the belief that there is something outside of awareness, but it's strange, nobody has ever found that something. It's just a belief. Wouldn't it be safer? You're right, that's not a proof that there isn't anything outside awareness. But seeing as nobody has ever experienced such a thing, wouldn't it be safer to presume that there isn't anything outside awareness? I mean, you're a very rational person. Wouldn't that be the rational conclusion to draw?
Yes, that's correct. But I think my problem is not necessarily with the existence of something else outside of the awareness. It's more about the fact that I'm not experiencing you as being awareness, for example, or I'm not
You see, when you say I'm
experiencing.
not experiencing you as being awareness, the you that you are referring to, you're presuming that it is outside awareness. And you are then asking a question about it. I understand, of course, that what is being said is an affront to the presumptions upon which our culture is based. But when you look around at our culture, do you see a culture that's got everything sorted out? Do you see a sane, intelligent, loving culture? No.
Not really.
Could it be that the founding principles of our culture are faulty? I mean, if it was just a matter of tweaking borders between countries and getting the welfare national health system working a bit better, don't you think we would have sorted that out by now? Why do you think culture is still, our world culture is still in so much conflict? Could it be that it's something deeper? It's a deeper issue than simply who owns which piece of land. Could it be that the conflict that's experienced in our culture is due to something that is fundamental in our culture, a fundamental way of looking at experience? Could it be that there is something faulty about this belief that experience is made out of this, half experience is made out of this dead stuff called matter, and the other half is made out of this ephemeral stuff called mind? Isn't it strange that physicists still haven't found this stuff called matter? Isn't it strange that psychiatrists have never found the stuff called mind? We think that's what our experience consists of, mind and matter. But the experts, not cranks like me, but the ones that really know, like physicists and psychiatrists, the physicists have never found this stuff called matter. Psychiatrists have never found the stuff called mind. Why not? Do you think if they just try a little bit harder, they'll eventually find it in a few years' time? Could it be that it's not there? Could it be that mind and matter are concepts that are superimposed onto our experience? And doesn't everybody know at some level that all of this, that this universe, that this world, that this realm of experience, don't we all know that it is more than just dead inert stuff called matter? If you were to ask anybody on their deathbed, what was most important to you in your life? Do you think anybody would say mind and matter? No, people would say love, joy, beauty. Everybody knows, even if they don't need to formulate it in the way that I'm formulating it, but everybody knows that there is more to life than just mind and matter. Everybody knows that. Why do we love friendship? Why do we love intimacy in relationship? Because we love love. Why do we enjoy walking in nature? Because we love beauty. Why do all separate selves seek happiness 24/7? All throughout their lives, they seek this experience called fulfillment or joy. It's because everybody knows, everybody lives with this deep intuition that the reality of life is so much more than stuff called dead, inert stuff called matter, or this fleeting, ephemeral stuff called mind. We all know deeply in our hearts that there is a reality to experience. There is a sacred reality to experience.